All right, we are live. Welcome in, Lester. A little bit of fun yesterday.
Bear and Balance talking about a season opening win. Undefeated Bears. Look at us. It's a new era.
I mean, there's a crazy. You had that crazy game against the Niners a couple years ago with the monsoon. That was opening week, and then not so good after that. But that was shades of Dennis Green's Cardinals and the Brian Urlacher, Devin Hester comeback, wasn't it?
It's a very old school type of win here, which is how I titled the article at the site. But yeah, there's some. I got some stuff coming up a little later that kind of ties into some games of yesteryear.
Yeah, well, it's boy, I tell you, it was kind of insane. I think it's fitting in some weird poetic way that the Caleb Williams era kicks off with the most classic old school Bears win, and then hopefully then he just starts changing the narrative next week.
Yeah,
he got that one. It's not even that he. I mean, we'll get into it in the show, but I don't think that he played. He obviously didn't play well, but like he had some good passes. Like, I mean, there's some good stuff there. A ton of batted balls, which is not good. I don't know what's going on there.
5 batted balls, yeah.
5 batted balls. Okay, I had 4 written, but as we talked, like I didn't have a complete chance to digest everything. So yeah, 5 batted balls, but some of that stuff, it's there, right? Like that throw to Keenan Allen. That throw to Keenan Allen in the end zone should have been a touchdown. That throw to Keenan Allen should have been an explosive play, but he just split second longer, and he would have been able to rip that throw, and that would have been probably a 25-yard gain, not a little more. So, and again, you can't do the like what if game.
Yeah.
But this game just looks very different if some of that stuff he's not just facing pressure in his face immediately from a couple D tackles that are clearly fresh and ready to go for the year. I mean, I love Simmons. Maybe Tavondre Sweat's going to be a guy. These are also really big guys in the first game of the year. You'd be curious to see if they're able to like maintain that momentum throughout the year. Not that I'm going to watch a ton of Titans, but I want to check back in on those guys because they're good, really good football. Well, Simmons is a really good football player. Maybe Sweat will be, but I don't know that you can expect that level of defensive interior, just dominance, all year. And those two guys are amongst. I would assume you're not going to see that level of talent very often, or again this year.
Yeah, that's a really good defensive tackle group. I mean, obviously we all knew Simmons is good. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler, but I was not aware Sweat was that good. But I was talking to some Titans people, and they said he had a great camp. He had a great offseason. They really expecting huge things from him. And here week 1, he just comes in and just looked really good.
I think was he the guy that fell because of you have like a little off. I don't want to speak out of turn if I'm wrong. Did he have a off-field issue that sort of had him drop in the draft?
He might have been the guy. I know it was a defensive tackle. I can't recall. Yeah, I mean that's. I mean, if that's the case, hopefully he's got things going good now, and the Titans have a good player there because, I mean, I like watching the big guys play, and he's 366 pounds. He just really active hands. Obviously he's got power, so he's a fun player to kind of watch.
I've got something that we need to just cover right before we go. I kept refreshing Twitter to see if we get any updates. Adam Schefter has Rome Odunze sprained his MCL, will be considered week to week per source. So that is a really good outcome. Like I asked Dr. Mason West, I said, hey, explain this to me like I'm 5. Yeah. What is it that we need to, why would they send him to an MRI? Like, what's the range of outcomes that we're talking about? Can you tell anything from the tape? And, there's all these docs online that do that. Nate Mason's really good at it. Sometimes he's hesitant to put that stuff out there, particularly if he doesn't have a good view, which I understand. He doesn't necessarily want to speculate, but he's like, yeah, it could be nothing. It could be like a day-to-day type thing, or it could be the knee is completely shredded. like we don't know. You just have to wait for the results. So, a few people in our circle were already freaking out. They already had written Rome off for the year. They got him scheduled for surgery later in the week, and it's like, hey, why don't we just wait? Why don't we just wait and see what happens? So this sounds like about the best case scenario that we could have hoped for here. Jordan Schultz has another tweet here, and he says Odunze will seek a second opinion, but this is the best case scenario. So maybe he's just making sure, double check. But an MRI is an MRI, so I assume maybe he'd have his own doctor read the MRI or something. I don't know what that means, but that's a really good. My heart is feeling a little better
right?
after that, right?
I mean, if he, there's no surgery. That's the key, obviously. We kind of, as Bears fans, we kind of knew this with Jay Cutler when he had his issue back in the day. Of course, Packers fans are going through this now with Jordan Love, and no surgery. But what Mason was saying was, if it's a tear. I mean, it's a tear. Just then I have to have surgery.
When they say sprain, it actually means a tear.
Yeah.
But how big that tear is, it depends on how fast your knee can recover. And like he said in Hard Knocks, hey bro, I'm 22, I'm fine, right? Like meaning when you're younger, you do you heal a little bit. And I don't know if you have experienced this. You may be like the guy in Unbreakable, Lester. I'm not sure, but as I have gotten older, I have noticed that my recovery takes a little longer. I have to think about it. I have to be a little diligent about things. I have to make sure that I put myself in a position to recover after a workout. Whereas when I was, 18 to 24, whatever, man, you roll out of bed, you're fine. Just, kind of, oh, yep, I'm good. Right. So he's young. He's got youth on his side is all I'm saying.
He'll be fine. I've got everything shared now. If you want to kick this podcast off, I think we're good. I got my phone turned off now. I just got a text. Someone telling me, hey, have you heard about Rome Odunze? Yes, I have heard. JB just filled me in on the show. If you're watching the show,
go watch the show.
Known.
Yeah. Go watch the show, Dave. I don't know who it was.
Actually, it was ECD. So.
Okay. Yeah. Come on, dude. Go watch the show. All right. Let's get into this thing. Welcome to Bear Balance. I'm Jeff Berckes. On the other side of the screen, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. The Bears 1-0 with a classic Chicago Bears victory. How did you find the Chicago Bears win?
It's funny because, I'm watching, obviously, the dread is there, right? As Bears fans, we're like, oh my God, here we go again. The quarterback's going to suck. The defense is getting shredded. They're down 17-0. The dread is there. The dread is real with Bears fans. We have that in us. But then when I'm doing the rewatch today, and obviously I know the Bears are going to come back and win, as you're watching it, you kind of have a different perspective as you're watching, and you're like, okay, if this ball would have bounced this way, way different outcome. This block would have been picked up here, way different outcome. This catch would have been made, way different outcome. So you kind of see these little nuanced things in the game on the rewatch where you're like, that's not as bad as you would have thought originally.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. You go back and watch it again, and it's a 3-and-out. They're exchanging these 3-and-outs, right? But the Bears defense is really clawing down and forced 2 3-and-outs, and then the Titans come back and they've clearly okay, these guys are swarming to the football. So let's do something about that. So they're running all of this kind of counter action stuff. They're messing with the flowing to the football. It's really smart football. And they're just kind of powering that down. They get the touchdown and it's okay, that's good. The Bears can make the adjustment. That'll happen. That's just normal football where one side sees something, they're going to make a change. They hit gold, and then the Bears will make an adjustment, and they'll go from there. And then the kickoff, and Velus Jones just can't handle a kickoff, and then kicks it right to them, or whatever the heck that was. It just boom, and now it's a turnover. Bears defense right back on the field. They just gave up a touchdown, right back on the field. Now, if this was a bad defense, they're going to give up another touchdown, right? But they didn't. So, I mean, there's just this they showed resilience, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of instances where the Bears defense looked really great. Now, if you want to go rose-colored glasses, I'm not going to be the guy to tell you hey, I know for sure everything's going to be okay. But what I'll tell you is it's game one. Offenses are generally behind defenses. It's year one of an offense. It's a rookie quarterback. Like, you have all of the things that are markers that tell you that this thing would start off slow. And it was pretty close. Like, there were things
Yeah.
that just needed to get cleaned up a little bit. And I think you would have seen a lot more. But also there were some scoring drives, right? Like, it wasn't like there was nothing. There was a little bit of movement, just not enough to win most professional football games.
There were moments, like you said. I think that's key. The key is obviously it's a rookie. Yeah, we all wanted 300 yards, 5 touchdown performance out of the gate. We all kind of had a feeling it's going to be rough because, what was the stat? There has been a rookie first overall draft pick that's won a game since Carr in like 2000 whatever. So it's been a long time, like 14 straight L's, right? So we kind of had a feeling. Not every rookie CJ Stroud, they'd all step in and take their team to the playoffs. So we knew there'd be growing pains. So I thought it'd be a little better than it was. But like I said, on the rewatch, you're like, okay, there's some stuff to work with here. I also wasn't as down on Shane Waldron as I was during the first watch. There were some things I saw that he did where I'm like, okay, I see how this design will set something up down the road because there's a counter off it, and there's like a second counter off it. So I'm like, okay, there's some stuff here I like in his offense. The sequencing of plays again was a little better on the rewatch. I'm like, some of it makes more sense, but at the end of the day, though, you got to execute, and the Bears had some problems up front in executing.
Yeah, and we'll get into the categories here in a minute, but I think one of the things that stuck out to me a little bit on the initial watch was, boy, we're seeing a lot of Travis Homer. Boy, we're seeing a lot of Gerald Everett. We're seeing a lot of guys that may not have been players that we would have thought would have had healthy snap share. And as I kind of sat and thought about it and looked around the league, watched a fair amount of football over the weekend, it's week one. These guys had, a multiple week break after week 3, and most of those starters didn't play in the week 3 of the preseason game of the preseason. They didn't really play since week 2 of the preseason. And then if you go back then, like, how much are they playing? They're playing about a half, right? If that. And some of these guys weren't playing at all. So it's tough to simulate how much energy it takes I think it's a shock every year. Like, oh yeah, geez, these games are long. I got to get kind of back up to there. And so I think there's a little bit of that where let's keep these guys fresh because we know that most of these guys aren't going to be able to play. Now, you can't do that with your offensive line, right? Your offensive line is going to play everything. So, I don't know what DJ Moore's snap share was, but it was pretty high. So those guys are going to, he kept a lot of those guys in, but I wasn't shocked to see a running back rotation. I wasn't shocked to see that. Now, if we're a month from now and Travis Homer is getting more than Khalil Herbert, I just don't understand what's wrong with Khalil Herbert. And people are going, oh, you can't pass block. Okay, you don't have to use the running back in your pass protection when you call a pass play. Like, you can do other things to account for that. And everybody said, well, it's super predictable when Herbert's in there, they're going to run. Well, one, no, that's not true. They still pass off of that. But two, even if that's true, and you say like, oh, it's so predictable, they know that they're going to run. Why is his yards per carry so high, Lester? Who cares? That's the outcome you care about, is how good of a rusher is he? How often is he breaking off explosive runs? How often is he moving the chains? He's still really efficient as a ball carrier. Who cares if everybody knows you're going to give it to him?
This is definitely a Herbert stand pot. I mean, it has been since, he's a good running back. I mean, that's what he is. We all know his deficiencies, but like you said, there's ways to hide things. You don't have to have him stay in there as a blocker. Have him do a check release, have him chip and release, just enough to get out there. And, does he have the best hands in the NFL? Probably not, but he's gotten better with his hands every year. I think there's a way to use them. I just think you said it's week 1. There are a lot of weird combinations happening. You look all around the league, you hear a lot of ex-players that are in now analysts all talking. These first few weeks are like preseason games because no one plays preseason anymore. These guys are coming in, and like you said, plus now there's the break between preseason and the regular season. So there's an extra time there. So this is their way to get used to it. You can't really tell what a team is until a few weeks into the season. So, it's going to be a tough go for the Bears here next week in Houston. That's a pretty good football team, but we'll know more about this franchise here at the end of the month.
Yeah, you can't really tell what a team is, and so it's nice to be able to get the victories however you can get them, and then once things kinda settle, then you kinda know, like, "Okay, this team looks like it's pretty good, here's the like, then you have an idea of what the matchups look like and what's a surprise and what's not. I mean, the Patriots, their over/under win total for the year was, like, 3 wins or something like that, and everybody's got the Bengals in the playoffs, and they beat the Bengals.
The Bengals were my survivor pick this week, so
I actually moved off of them because as I was thinking about it, I thought Jamar Chase thing, the T Higgins thing, Burrow has started slow in the past, so I actually moved off of it and I took the Seahawks.
I
So
was about to move off it, and then I talked myself out of talking myself out of it. So I'm like, no, I'm gonna stay with it. The Patriots are gonna stink. Well, what did I know? At least the silver lining is I don't got to worry about checking that survivor lineup every week. Now I can just
yeah, no, it's done. You're good.
focus on my fantasy teams and
It's not a 3 strikes and you're out. It's just a 1 strike.
Oh, I may have to double check it. It's the WCG league, so I think that might be. Oh, it might be a 2 strikes, 2 or 3 strikes. So I'll have to still check it.
I like the 3 strikes and you're out survivor leagues. I'm in one that's just a 1 strike. I just did the national Yahoo one, and that 40 some percent got knocked out from that Bengals pick. So
week 1.
That was good. That was good for me.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our categories, Lester. We should start off every episode with a trench tribute because the big guys, no captains along the offensive or defensive line this year. So we got to make sure that we give a little bit of extra time to the big guys, and a couple of, I think, very much worthy candidates for this first initial week. Who do you got for your trench tribute?
I'm going to go with nose tackle Andrew Billings as my trench tribute. I as I'm watching him, he was flashing, right? Like, man, he looks pretty good. He's not really filling the stats, but he had 2 tackles. He had tackle for loss. He had 2 quarterback hits. But then I saw like the analytics. He had 4 pressures in the game, and he's not really known for his pressures. And then another thing I noticed in the game is I noticed it right off the bat for the first series. And this is something that I saw when I was in camp, that they weren't flipping their 3-tech, 1-tech. They were kind of letting, if you're on the right side, when the offense comes out, just stay there. And if the strength dictates you are now the 3, then you're now the 3-tech. So they did that with Billings, quite a few times. He was playing the 3-tech, and he doesn't have the elite quickness that you would want out of that position, but his power, his hand use, he has a real good rip, a real good swim. I mean, he's really active with what he does with his hands. And like we said, he's one of the strongest players in the game. So he was very effective. I think he's going to enjoy playing some 3-tech stuff as opposed to always being the guy on the shade. So Billings is my week 1 trench tribute.
I love it. I mean, I always write down 2 names. He was one of them. To me, he was on a heater last year. I mean, he looked so good. At one point last year, and I think even Ryan Poles was like, I got to get this guy. Let's get this guy some ink. Like we got to get this guy signed here for a little longer. So he earned like a contract extension last year, and I mean, he gets worn down a little bit. Again, those big guys, that'll happen to him. So he might not have that pass rush flash all the time, but he's fun. He is a fun player. If you like watching the trenches, he is fun to watch because he's just a big bowling ball, right? He's just this big dude, and he's moving, and he's getting pressure. Like I said, 4 pressures. That's just got to be scary, even for a bigger quarterback like Will Levis. Like, I don't want to get hit by that guy. That guy's gigantic, right? So he's flashing in front of you. That'll surely speed up your clock. I'll take the obvious one then. And that's Darrell Taylor. Wow. I mean, what a find by Ryan Poles. And again, we've talked about this. Why is this player available? Well, you got a new coach in Seattle putting in a new system. They have a lot of defensive linemen, a lot of rush linebackers and defensive linemen. They had a pretty good rotation, and just he didn't necessarily fit with what Mike McDonald wanted to do. And so he was made available. Ryan Poles made a very team-friendly offer. I mean, that's not much to acquire his services. And he comes in and just flashing speed and effort. And there's a couple moves, maybe a little more than I gave him credit for. He was flashing a few moves there, but it just seems like I'm going to fly around the corner and good luck trying to stop me. and all of that effort it resulted in 2 sacks and a forced fumble, and just absolutely launching himself into Bears fandom favorite, right? Like, I mean, a guy that plays with his hair on fire like that, I mean, you're already going to be a fan favorite. But then,
Yeah.
like, the other thing, and I wanted to kind of throw this to you, is that what a perfect compliment to Montez Sweat.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
that's a good one there because I heard him compared to Yannick Ngakoue, like a younger Yannick Ngakoue, with kind of what he does. He has some question marks about his run, the setting the edge, his defense against the run. But I didn't see a lot of problems. I saw him active. If anything, I did see him over pursue a little bit when I thought he, again, I don't know the scheme. It seemed like a couple times where he had contained. It looked like he over pursued. It didn't hurt him this week though. But I think when teams kind of see him on tape, they may try and counter him or kind of hit him with a reverse or something to end around because they're going to get him sucked in there going after a play fake. But yeah, he was active. He is one of those guys where, because Sweat's going to get so much attention. Dexter and Billings are pretty stout players. He should always have one-on-ones. You're not going to double team him. So I think with a guy like Taylor coming off the edge in a rotation, I think they can just kind of, pepper offensive tackles with a bunch of fresh bodies. And this week it was Taylor. Taylor was the guy that benefited.
Yeah, going up against a rookie, and that may have been part of it. May not have been ready for the speed. Obviously he's taken his game up since he's been a pro and been able to work on even getting even faster off the edge. Now, maybe some weeks you're gonna, Laramie Tunsil next week might not be too impressed with that speed. Laramie Tunsil's like one of the best left tackles in the game, right?
Yeah.
So Laramie Tunsil may just say, "Okay, try it," and just envelop him, and maybe Booker's long arm is going to work a little bit more. Maybe Booker gets a few more snaps, right? So it's nice to have a mix of moves in your players, because some tackles are more susceptible to others. Now, you'd love it if everybody is just a beast and can win against pretty much everybody. Montez Sweat is a really good defensive end. He can have success against pretty much anybody in the league, right? Well, those guys are really expensive and really hard to find. And so if you're going to build a room, I like the idea of having different skill sets. And so I like him even more now that I've seen him work. One, the effort is awesome. Like that never goes out of style. But two, it's just, I think it's a skill that I'm not sure. I mean, Booker's quick off the edge, but I think he's using a much more of a long arm move than Taylor is moving. He's trying to just get around. Like he's using speed and bend. So I like that combination. It looks like that could be really fun to watch.
Did you see the video? I'm not sure who shared it on Twitter, but someone shared it. They kind of showed him after a sack when he got it. He just kind of walks off like that's it, And then whoever it was, they compared it to the cool guy at the explosion in the movie, right? The explosion's behind you, you just kind of walk.
Yeah. So much CGI that in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been done that. Let's go.
Well, like the chaos was going on around there because it was a forced fumble that was recovered by the Bears, and he's just walking off. Whatever. Cool. Let's go. Yeah, that's great. No celebration. Just doing it. All right, let's move on to content and numbers games. This is our stat of the week. I've got kind of a depressing one, but did you come up with something fun?
I did. My number is 17. And I'm sure as Bears fans, we kind of know that's how many points they were down. They came back 17 points. And that's actually the fourth largest comeback in franchise history. It's tied for the fourth largest comeback in franchise history. And I want to kind of mention this because there are two games within this realm here. Obviously, the Cardinals game, the Urlacher game, the Hester game, the Tillman game. That game was huge against the Cardinals, the Dennis Green, you are who we thought you were game. So, they came back in that one, 2006, right? That was a great season for the Bears. But there's another game in here that kind of mixed in, which was also a 17-point comeback, and that was the Mike Brown against the Niners game.
Oh,
the pick where he kind of got it and he took it back. So, two games in this realm of comeback area that really harken back to two pretty good Chicago Bear football teams.
I love it. That was the most fun year of cheering that I've ever had was that 01 team. that was a lot of fun. That was just an unexpectedly fun team. So
Yeah.
it's always good to
Dick Duran's greatest hits that year.
yeah. Always good to call back to the Mike Brown era. Mike Brown was my favorite player by a long shot. I loved him. My number also 17. What are the odds of that?
Yeah.
17 is the difference between DeAndre Carter's 131 total yards of punt return and kick return yardage and the Chicago Bears offense total yardage was 148, which is a difference of 17.
Wow.
Two things with that number. One, did we know DeAndre Carter was going to be this effective on returns? Because hello, like he was good.
Yeah.
Like kick returns, effective, punt returns, like good, effective. Like I was really impressed in both facets. And I know that part of it is the kick returns feel like they're kind of changing a little bit to where like they're maybe more like a lot of people are putting running backs back there. We saw Khalil Herbert back there. We saw Velus Jones back there, who I guess is now running back. So I think maybe there a lot of us are going towards running backs for the kick returns and then wide receivers for punt returns. But Carter looked good at both, and we've talked about how hard it is to find a guy that can do both. And did you know this? Did you know that he was going to be this good?
He had a cup of coffee with the Bears a few years ago, right? I mean, he was in a team for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I think he had a really nice year with the Chargers. I want to say there was one year where he was really effective as a returner and with the Chargers, and as a receiver, he was pretty good. So I kind of like the pickup. I just kind of thought he may kind of get lost in the shuffle because it's a pretty deep receiver room the Bears had in camp here, but he did enough. He earned his job, and now he's in a team, and now it looks like he's going to be a primary, kick returner and punt returner. I mean, he's always been good punt returner. And if he's your guy on kick returns, I mean, that's fine. Velus, I mean, he still has a place in this roster, obviously, because he has that explosive speed. But I don't know. I want to see, on the game, Mark Sanchez pointed out a really good thing there. He talked about how Velus, when he went to field the kickoff, he had his hands too low. He said, you want to have your hands and your elbows higher for those kickoffs. And I never really thought of it that way, but that was a good point from Mark Sanchez, former Bears legend quarterback there.
Maybe his only good point of the day, because boy, Mark Sanchez had some.
Yeah.
Not to pick on the guy, but geez, maybe learn how to pronounce names. That was rough. It's Mark Sanchez. Okay, I have always thought, and this is easy for me to say sitting on this chair, but I've always thought that fielding a punt is such a high level skill because you've got traffic around you. You've got to figure out if you're going to return it or not. And so there's a little bit more than just looking at the ball. Plus, a punt can just flutter in weird ways. It can get caught in the wind. Like it is the degree of difficulty on a punt, I think, is really high. And I'm always impressed by guys that do it well. A kick return is generally pretty predictable. The ball goes end over end. It's really hard to see a lot of variation. And the ones that do, they're like going out of bounds, right? Like if a kicker like kind of hooks it or something, and then you're kind of playing the like, oh, is this going to go out of bounds for a penalty? You're not really trying to field them. And so you rarely see guys struggle catching a kick. And I just don't get it. Like I don't have a lot of patience for this because I'm just not. If we were talking about, man, he just keeps muffing punts, we really want to make him, and it's like, okay, guys, see, like he just clearly doesn't have the skill to return a punt. But when it's like, hey, he just clearly doesn't have the skill to catch a kickoff, you're like, wait, what? How is that possible? Like I just don't know of a lot of skilled players that can't do that. So it's just weird to me. Like it's just weird. Is he doing that in practice too? Is he like, what's the deal with that?
We saw him in camp last year. I saw him in camp this year, and I mean, you don't see that. I think it's mental at this point. With a guy like that, when that happens, that's what is that? They call the yips, right? When you just can't do something that you should be able to do, you just can't do it when the lights are on. So, I think at some point he may get another crack back there. But for the next few weeks, I think it's going to be DeAndre Carter as your primary guy.
And that's fine with me. I think we are pretty comfortable with that. right, let's move on to the Twitter segment, and we're going to continue to call it Twitter, just for the record. For any of
Sweet
you new to the
tweets.
show,
It's sweet tweet. Can't
it's
mess
sweet
it up.
tweets. We're just calling it Twitter. So whatever. A to Z Sports Nashville, which is at A to Z Sports. They have a quote here from Titans head coach Brian Callahan. He says, "If we just punted on 1st and 10 every time, we might have won the game." Is that like, where is that? If the Denny Green quote of "they are who we thought they were, and that's why we took the field and we let them off the hook," right? Like, wonderful quote. If that's a 10, this is coming in at like a 7. Like, I mean, this is pretty hot to basically call out. This is his first game. And to basically call out your offense and be like, if we just would have punted on 1st and 10, we might have won.
The Titans are pretty salty after this loss. I mean, I think they really, I mean, there was a quote by Jeffrey Simmons he was really upset about things too. And, a couple other guys had some bad things to say about things. So, I mean, it was a game they probably thought they had in hand, and a lot of the pundits had the Bears winning. Obviously, all the eyes were on Caleb Williams. I mean, he was the talk of the offseason. The league was putting him, in the front of a lot of marketing campaigns. Hard Knocks is there, so he was the star of Hard Knocks. So I'm sure the Titans are like, F this guy, F this team. Wasn't it one of the Titans that kind of took a crack at the nail painting from Caleb? Yeah, so it was Simmons. So they were probably sick of it, and they really wanted to get this win and stick it to the Bears, stick it to Chicago. And it's funny whenever I think of the Titans, I always think of the game from a few years ago where Bears fans went to Nashville and drank all the beer in the whole city. So whenever the Bears play the Titans, whenever I think the Titans, that's the first thing I think of how Chicago
was the
fans
Peanut
Tillman
multiple forced fumble game.
That was 4 forced fumbles. That was, I think, Urlacher touchdown that game. It was like a 50 some odd point.
Oh, it was a
explosion,
thrashing,
and they drank all the beer in the whole city. So
that is also a very Iowa Hawkeyes story, by the way. There are multiple like Hawkeyes go to this bowl game and like there's no beer left.
Oh man.
Like, so it's like there's a big overlap in when that story came out with Bears, I was like, oh geez, like there's a lot of Bears fans that are Hawkeyes fans, and they must have wanted to travel to Nashville. I love the quote. That's one of my favorite quotes. The Surrender Cobra picture of Will Levis after that pick 6, where he's just on the ground with his hands on his head. Like,
what was he doing? It was like he's,
it's in the middle of the play, and he's just like, oh no, he's on his knees. It is amazing. It is. Hang it up. We need to get it. We need to do like a picture of the week or something, and that one's just going to be like the image of the week, but it might be the image of the year. It's so good.
I'm gonna have to check through Getty and USA Images, see if there's an actual good picture of that somewhere, because right now all I saw were the screenshots. But
I posted one earlier.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. But we'll get a good one. We'll get a good one off Getty. All right, your tweet of the week.
So Patrick Finley, of course, worked for the Chicago Sun-Times. He kind of sent this tweet out after the game talking about Caleb Williams' 55.7 pass rating is the 11th worst debut among all quarterbacks picked first overall since 1970. The list of performances worse than his include John Elway, who had a 0, Terry Bradshaw, 19.3, Matthew Stafford, 27.4, Troy Aikman, 40.2, Eli Manning, 45.1, and then Kyrie Thompson, quote, he tweeted it as a joke. Oh, so you're saying that Caleb's on the way to the Hall of Fame.
Right. I was going to say, Hall of Famer should be in the Hall of Fame. Hall of Famer should be in the Hall of Fame.
There's like 12 Pro Bowls, 3 Hall of Famers, multiple rings in this group. So it's not how you start, it's how you finish. So as upset as we were over what we saw, that game will not define his career. And like what you said, I think is perfect. It's fitting that the Chicago Bears franchise will start his career with a typical Chicago Bears dub.
Yeah, I love it's great research from Patrick to have that out there, because you're like, oh wow, it's really bad. Oh wait, look at these guys that he's on this list with. Yes, this happens. It is what it is. It's those are some of the best names to ever play the game. So and Peyton Manning didn't have a very good first day either. I don't know if he was on that list or not, but I will say I gotta go back before. so I did not come up with that stat. I did. I lifted it from our friend Brendan Shagru. So I just want to make sure that I'm giving him credit for it because I gave him a hard time on Twitter for posting it. But when I was putting the show together, I was like, that's pretty funny. That's pretty good. I got to include it. So Brendan gets the credit for the stat of the week. You already brought us into Caleb. So let's go to our new segment.
Yeah.
Caleb's Corner. Caleb Williams, 14 of 29 for 93 yards. That's not fun. That's not very good. However, he didn't have a touchdown. He had a drop touchdown. That is what it is. Big number for me is 0 interceptions. Another big number for me is 2 sacks. Now, we could talk about those sacks if you would like. You would talk about losing 19 yards on a sack, trying to backpedal a defensive lineman and then rolling into another defensive lineman. Maybe not the best, but only 2 sacks, despite the fact that he was constantly under pressure and under pressure from interior pressure. I actually think that was a pretty good result, all things considered, that he did not force a ball into traffic. There wasn't, he had that one that was just like a 108 mile an hour heater over the middle that got bounced up and Rome caught it and then fumbled it and Tevin recovered it. Insane play. I don't know why he needed to throw a heater there, and that was inaccurate. That could have been a bad play. And then you got the couple of the batted balls, but he wasn't throwing in a triple coverage. He wasn't making he didn't make the Will Levis decision, right?
Yeah.
Like he didn't do anything like that. And even despite all of that pressure, only 2 sacks. So I think that there's some pretty good silver lining to this stat sheet when you watch the game and marry that. I think that there's a number of throws that just weren't made because they were tipped and pressure and batted balls and that kind of stuff. You can't make excuses for that all the time, but in terms of an overall game and what was out there, no real huge mistakes beyond that sack that he took.
Flus talked about it in his press conference today that he thought Caleb made good decisions, with the ball. He was smart with it. Obviously, the sack was terrible. I'm not sure if that sack or the other sack took him out of field goal range.
That sack definitely.
That was the one. So that was the one where you're like, okay, I'm sure he'll learn from that. Probably thought he can make a move there. But if you watch enough NFL football, that's a rookie sack. You see rookies take that specific sack so often around the league. You're just like, okay, he'll learn from that eventually. But then as the game went on, I thought there was some really smart plays. There was one play where he had a scramble. It was like a 3rd and forever. And he was really decisive when he knew, okay, I'm just going to get enough yards to make this an easier field goal for my guy. He knew he couldn't get the first down, but he was just smart with the ball. He dropped back. He saw the lane open. He took off and got some yards. Another play on a scramble. He kind of went to the sideline and kind of slid early to not go out of bounds to keep the clock running. So you see these awareness things from him where you're like, okay, let's just get some of these kinks worked out here, because the Caleb we saw yesterday was not the guy we saw in college. In college, we saw him use multiple. You talk about the fastball. He knew when to take stuff off his pass in college. Yesterday, a lot of it was fastballs. It's almost like he was just, I know he said he had the quote in Hard Knocks, so I don't get nervous. I think he may have been a little nervous.
Come on, man. Yeah. He had to have
overthrows, Yeah,
he was juiced. Yeah. He threw that one ball to Keenan Allen like Keenan Allen was Usain Bolt. You can't do it. Like it just, and that would have been another big play. And again, another explosive play that was there and just not executed. It's right there, man. Give the Titans credit. You don't get to go do the like, oh, well, only if. I understand that. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to wish cast or make excuses, but I went back and watched that thing, man, and I was like, it's close. It's close. Maybe the down to Houston, maybe that jitter will be out and we'll see what happens, right? Houston's a good football team, but I'm not sure they have interior defensive linemen like the Titans do. It's another week.
Mario Edwards Jr. is one of their starting defensive tackles, former Bear.
Okay, so maybe Tevin will have an okay game. Anything else you want to say about Caleb before we take a break and move on to the 3 Bears?
No, it wasn't what we wanted to see, but I think it's okay. It's fine. Let's not overreact. I don't like delving into Facebook much. I have to from time to time. But oh my God, the Facebook Bears fans, some of them just want it to fail so bad, like they can't wait just to kind of say, I told you so. But
They're miserable people.
oh my God, some of the most miserable, like, come on, guys. And again, I know it's a small part. I mean, it's what's the thing? The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So
Yeah, it's 10% of the we get it. And for those of you that are watching us live streaming on Facebook, we know that that's not you. We know we're not talking to you. We're talking to that 10% that just seems to wallow in their self-pity. Good save, right? Good save. Okay, we'll take a quick break here. On the other side of it, we'll do everybody's favorite segment, the Three Bears. Stick with us. All right, Lester, Three Bears time. First bowls of porridge getting handed out in the 2024 season. Let's start with the hot bowl of porridge. Who you got?
I'm going with the Chicago Bears Pro Bowl corner, Jalen Johnson.
Ooh.
I kind of watched. I'm like, well, that's what we expect, right? Out of Jalen Johnson. We expect him to be good, but he took it to another level. I mean, he was allowed one catch for -2 yards. He had the pick. He had one forced incompletion. 2.8 passer rating allowed when Will Levis was throwing his way. I saw the comment last year, right? They said that if a quarterback would just throw it in the dirt, they'd have a better rating. 2.8 pass rating allowed. He was good. He probably should have had 2 picks. The one he kind of misjudged. You kind of watch him when you do that. And when I was watching the replay again today, it's almost like he was setting up the receiver because he was beat on that play.
He undercut him. Yeah, he played trail coverage.
Yes, but like the way he did it, you kind of saw him thinking, okay, I know I got this. I have the speed to kind of be with him. And he could have had a second pick there. But Jalen Johnson, why would you throw towards him if you're an opposing quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, Levis could have beat him with probably a perfect throw there, but that perfect throw would have been, what, 50 yards in the air or something? I mean, I can't picture it in my mind, and he gets hit. So, he's the ball trajectory is altered. So that's why it was a duck. But yeah, I agree with you. It felt like he was trying to say, okay, sure, beat me over the top. And anything that's anywhere close to on target or short, I've got you. Yeah. So yeah, great call there. I had him written down in just right in case we wanted to mention him because he is really good and just kind of like, hey, we expect this from him. He's one of the best corners in the league and he was second team All-Pro last year, right? And yes, the not top 100 thing is ridiculous, but also if he would have gotten that pick, I would have cashed the Will Levis 3 pick bet. If all things being equal, which of course they wouldn't be because that's not how football works. But I was a little irresponsible with a couple of my long shot bets yesterday, but it was fun. And I do not regret that. I do not regret it because I thought Will Levis was going to get eaten alive and he ended up getting eaten alive. So it was great.
As long as you're betting on stuff that you can afford to bet on, it's fun to do,
Those are, when I say irresponsible long shot bets, I'm putting sprinkles on. These are not like, I'm not betting a lot of money. They're just little sprinkle bets. They're fun. It's fun. Honestly, like I thought that the most obvious bet on the board yesterday was Will Levis under like 230 yards. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm just going to take this free money. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to make this. I'm going to make a couple of like, kind of crazy bets. So I had like a 50-yard Rome Odunze catch, 50-yard or longer Rome Odunze catch. That didn't happen. But just things like that. All right, my hot bowl porridge here. I'm gonna go with. Well, I had a couple written down, and you didn't take it. I want to mention that the punt block. This is not my award, but the punt block deserves some talk here. So Daniel Hardy with a block. I love punt blocks. That's fantastic. Like, I don't remember the last punt block like that, but they're fun. And then the scoop and score, like that's what you're taught. Scoop and score. It's not like recover it because that's a live ball. You want to, if that other team, if the Titans recover it, you still get the ball, right? So it's not like fight for the fumble. It's score this thing. Yeah. So the fact that Owens was able to do it so cleanly and just score is fantastic. Loved it. Great play. I've already watched it 7 times. One of my favorite plays from the week, and it'll be on the highlight reel for the year. So I want to make sure that we give them some credit. We talked about DeAndre Carter. I didn't know anything about him, and so he's a perfect hot bowl of porridge candidate here. So I think he deserves some recognition. We'll find him at least a cup of porridge here. But I'm going to give it to Taylor. I'm going to give it to Darrell Taylor. I mean, I didn't know what to expect. To me, he seems kind of one-dimensional, but he showed a little bit more than that. But also, I knew he was a high-effort guy. I knew that by going back and watching some of the Seahawks stuff, but really seeing it just consistently all game long and having success getting around the edge, really schooling that rookie, Latham, who I like, right? He seems like a really good guy and a good player. So it was really fun to see. And so just by definition of a guy that exceeds my expectations, Darrell Taylor and his 2 sacks gets my hot bowl of porridge this week.
I like that. Taylor's a good pick there. I like mentioning Carter. You got to sprinkle it out a little bit here because, it was a win. We got to have a little more on the scales. We got to have a little more positive and negative. So I like that.
Do you ever order a bowl of soup at a restaurant?
I have in the past.
You have once or twice, right? I kind of like some soup, like Asian soups and stuff, but there's always like a cup and a bowl, right? Like
you
want the cup for like $3 and the bowl for like $6-7, right? I'm just saying, like, maybe we can give cups of porridge, right? Just little cups, but the big bowl goes to Taylor. And again, you could give this to Billings too, but I think you actually need more than we like Billings. So maybe that's what we expect, but you need more than a bowl for Billings. You need like a trough for Billings because he's a big guy. He needs more. Let's flip it around. Cold bowl of porridge, guy that did not meet expectations.
I was all set to go with center Coleman Shelton.
Yeah.
And then I'm watching the game and I'm like, well, Nate Davis kind of sucked too. And then I'm watching the game and I'm like, wow, Tevin Jenkins got beat a few times here pretty badly.
Yeah.
And then I'm watching Ryan Bates get ran over. So my cold bowl goes to the entire interior Bears offensive line. And yeah, they played against a pretty good tandem at defensive tackle, but this was rough. It wasn't just, getting beat one-on-ones. It wasn't just getting beat with bull rushes. They were getting out-quicked. They were making mistakes on stunts, just stupid stuff. And you're like, what's happening here? And look, we have kind of questioned the O-line of the Bears here for a few years now. We've kind of talked about, Chris Morgan, the O-line coach, is it a Morgan thing? Is it a Getsy thing, in the years past? And now here we are again. We're seeing some of these mistakes, and week 1, obviously it could kind of go away, but at some point, Chris Morgan's going to be like, what are you doing, buddy? Like, why are you not teaching your guy to kind of stay home, and not leave your area? Because if there's no one there and you're on the O-line, someone's coming to you. If your guy goes away, odds are someone's coming back to you on a stunt. And then they got burned. It was just a bad group. Yeah,
I mean the one that you're referring to, at least the one that I'm thinking of, it was Coleman Shelton.
Bad Coleman Shelton one, terrible.
Coleman Shelton going over, looking for work, if you will. Like he's trying to, he's going over and he's trying to engage in the defensive tackle that's engaged with the guard. I guess would have been probably Davis, and then as he does that, as he pushes, here's the looping defensive end coming in, and was that the other sack? I think that was a sack, right?
Yeah, it might have been a sack.
So that was the second sack, and I think in Caleb's defense, that one, Caleb could have got rid of that. Sure. Also, like that's on him, and not expected. Those games will kind of surprise you, and Shelton should have been able to take care of that. So I mean, I have names written down on the interior offensive line. I mean, I know we could pile on Velas for that mistake. I'm not going to do that. I mean, we very well could, but I also don't expect a lot out of him. So what are we doing here?
Yeah,
it's interior offensive line. And during our preview show, that's all we were talking about. What are you worried about? What keeps you up at night? Lack of, a second rusher, maybe these guys aren't going to work out, and the defense isn't going to be as good as it could be. And then a lot of talk about the offensive line. And then at one point I was like, I've kind of talked myself into this offensive line a little bit. And Bill and I were talking, and it was like, yeah, it's not a high ceiling group, right? I mean, there's a couple guys that you feel good about if they're really going well. You feel good about Darnell Wright's draft pedigree. You feel good about Tevin Coleman. Tevin Jenkins when he's out on the field, right? Like you feel good about the high end of a couple of those guys, but overall as a unit, this is a group that they got a floor, they got a ceiling. There's not much difference between those two, but like you feel good about it. And then they just got destroyed by what may be elite talent, or also just, I don't know, just getting their lunch handed to them. So it has to be them, because I think if they have a acceptable game, we're talking about a very different outcome here. We're talking about a very different Caleb Williams stat line. We're talking about a very different DeAndre Swift, and maybe Khalil Herbert gets a few more carries because the run game's working a little better. Like it really ruined the entire rhythm of the offense, and nothing could happen. So there's only one answer. It's just that.
Yeah, it's rough because where does help come from? I mean, today Coach Flus said that right guard is still a competition. That's why they rotated Davis and Bates. But like I said, Bates Bates was better than Davis, I thought, when the snaps I saw him in, but there was still, the one play where he just got bulldozed. You're like, oh my God, this can't be. And Bates was signed to be your center, or he was acquired to be your center. So do you like him better at center? I understand you're kind of forced, your hand is forced. Now you got to play him there. Maybe your best lineup would be Bates at center and then maybe Matt Pryor at guard. I mean, who knows? At some point, you got to try some other combinations here. And, Matt Pryor is a pro. He's been around the league for a long time. I mean, he's played a lot of positions there. So, Davis, that blunder's going to go down in history as one of Ryan Pohl's worst ever.
Yep. And, after this year, he can get out of it. But that is what it is. When you sign those guaranteed deals like that, you're really committing to that player for that amount of time. I mean, at some point, unless that player is just, a negative, and you need to get rid of him on the roster. But, if he loses his starting job and he becomes a backup, that is what it is. All right. How about your just right guy that you basically played how you expected him to?
I want to give kudos to the entire special teams unit. So I'm going to give it to special teams coordinator Coach Richard Hightower. We talked about the block punt. He schemed it up nicely. I mean, that was a nice play from him. Daniel Hardy made the play, obviously, but the way they kind of overloaded it, kind of made a move there. There was a really nice play design on the DeAndre Carter kick return, which is something we're going to start seeing more, right? Because it's this new dynamic, they're calling it. They're kind of it's more of a play now in front of him, where he had, I think it might have been Blasting Game, kind of pulling, and he was kind of kicking out, where it's like, okay, that's cool. It's kind of see how they're going to do that stuff there. The coverage units were sound in both punt and kick return. Jalen Jones, I think, had 3 special teams tackles. Torrey Taylor, did we mention Torrey Taylor yet?
Nope.
3 punts inside the 20. I thought he was good. I mean, he had one where it kind of, again, we talk about bounces. He had one where it kind of bounced and it kind of went to the sideways, but a little too deep into the end zone. Cairo Santos, money again. The new long snapper, Scott Daly, he did his job correctly. He got flagged once, but overall, special teams as a whole. Now, of course, we talk about Velus, and pulling Velus was the right call. Whether it was Coach Flus made that decision or Hightower made the decision, that was the right call, getting Velus out of there. So this may be a first. Richard Hightower with the just right.
I think it might be a first, and you touched on a lot of things. We already talked about Carter. We talked about the punt block. I will say 2 penalties on the 6 punts was unfortunate, because that added yardage from the end of the kick. And for someone who is trying to track the punting this year and trying to figure out how to represent that and how to talk about that and how to make it more real so that people understand like what's a good punt, what's based on where the field position is. And these guys, Puntalytics, I've been talking to them, and they put out their weekly punt. I know there's another game tonight, but they put out where everybody's at for week 1 punting. and Taylor was below average. Like he was on the bottom half of the graph. And when I crunched my numbers, he was slightly above average from what, and then we could be using slightly different numbers. I mean, I think my numbers are pretty good, but I asked him, I said, what's going on here? Like, are you using the penalty yardage? Or are you using pre-penalty? And I'm not sure what's better. Like, I'm not sure what the better approach is. But I did not use the penalties. Like I used it. I used the field position before the penalty was enforced. And they're like, no, we use the starting field position. So that counts against him. And so I don't know what the right answer is. That the right answer as a punting unit would include the penalty.
Yeah.
And then if you gave up, let's say you gave up a big return, but there was a penalty on the other team, and then that ball gets put 10 yards further back from where that guy fielded it. I mean, you'd want to take credit for that. There was a penalty on the Titans on one of the punts, and I didn't include that, right? So I went like no penalties, but I'm not sure that works from a statistical standpoint. Anyway, my point is there's a good idea. Like you can tell from where the line of scrimmage is, where the expected next field position should be. And then there's a value associated with that on the expected yards per drive from that field position. So I charted all of that out. So I know what the expectation is for each punt from the 5-yard line, the 38-yard line, whatever. And then where Taylor was able to hit those and where the next field position is, there's a point value associated with that. And I've calculated the difference. And it was basically a slightly better than the expectation for those 6 punts. And part of that is that punt that went into the end zone for a touchback that dropped on the 5. Now, if that gets downed at the 1, we're talking about like a really positive outcome for the day, because he would turn a negative into a positive. So I think over time it'll be really good, interesting, and fun to see how this maps out. And I think that he's going to be I think he will be a weapon. Like I think he's going to like show positive results week in, week out. But that noise associated with just 6 punts and the things that happen would really show that like you need a lot more data. So I know that's way too much punter talk. I saved it for the end at least. But yes,
we knew we'd get there at some point.
I do think it's interesting, and I'm going to invest some time into trying to understand this and figure this out and try to explain this to people.
It's interesting because you got to keep it consistent, right? Like if they're going to use the penalty yardage, I think that's how the NFL does. The NFL counts that as your net punt yards. They factor that in. I think that's probably why they do it that way. But if you're going to do it without penalty yards, as long as you're consistent, I think that's the way to go. And I will say, I did in my dynasty fantasy league, the opposing team, I had to face Tory Taylor this week, and he put up 6 points against me.
Who was your punter?
I have the punter for Seattle. He had 3
Dixon.
points for me. Yes, I believe that's who I have. Or maybe, is it? Yes, I think it is. He's a punter. I don't really think that.
He's a punter. Who cares?
Yeah.
I know the names of like 10 of the punters. So
I couldn't get Taylor, so I'm like, I'm just going to take the next best guy on my board. And, but I did face Tory Taylor, so it's kind of cool to,
You had a punter board because you sent me a message and said, "What's my? I pick 4th. What's my punter board look like?" So I sent you 4 names.
Yeah,
that was your punter board. That was the direct message that I sent you
because I picked. Yeah, so I was good, and then I got my guy right below Taylor, so I was good. Good place.
All right. I don't know that I have much else for this Victory Monday. Do you have anything you want to add before we get out of here?
I think we're good, man. We covered it. There's a game tonight. It should be fun. Let's see if Aaron Rodgers can make it through more than 3 snaps.
Through 3 snaps. Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, we'll end it here for the podcast. We'll stick around for a couple minutes to do questions before the Monday Night Football game starts. For those of you listening, thank you so much, and we will be here every single week after the game, almost always on Mondays. So if you want to join us live, we are on YouTube at Second City Gridiron, and we start at 6:00 Central Time. So we're very punctual. We have been late very few times, and so come join us and have a beverage and enjoy. But until next time, bear down. Got anything?
When did they cut Bayless? I don't think they're going to cut Bayless. I think Bayless is on this roster because they value his speed, right? I mean, he's also covering kicks. So if he's not returning, if he's your your receiver 6 and your running back 4, and he's covering kicks and covering punts, in their mind they can show that's value. It sucks that he can't return kicks because, man, 4.3 speed last year. I think he had 27 yards per return. I think at some point he'll get back to that. Yeah, I think Bayless is a Bear. At least until his contract's up, I think he's going to be a Bear.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get cut. I mean, that choice was probably made for them when they didn't trade him and when they had to put Ian Wheeler on injured reserve. I mean, like, and maybe even then, maybe they would have kept even Wheeler and Bayless and tried to find a landing spot for Khalil Herbert, who they clearly don't value. I mean, just, I don't know. Some things don't make sense, but they don't have to make sense to me. So
I was a little surprised that there was an offer on the table for Bayless. We found out in Hard Knocks, that
we don't know what it was.
We don't know what it was. He said he wouldn't go less.
I think he said he wouldn't go less than a 4.
Yeah.
But then he said something about that's tremendous value, but we're not going to take it.
Yeah.
And so it kind of tells me, like, because people are like, oh, they could add a 7th for him. It wasn't a 7th because polls wouldn't have said that it was value. So was it a 5th? Probably, but he wouldn't do it for less than a 4th. Like, what's the?
Yeah. And if you think about it, in the grand scheme of things, if he is your receiver 6 and running back 4, yeah, he's two roster spots essentially. But still, I mean, a 5th round pick for that's pretty good value.
Ken wants to know chance of the Bears getting pick 33. Ooh, buddy. I think it's high. They look terrible.
And they lost their best defensive tackle for the year.
Right. They already traded Burns. I mean, last year their defense kept them in a lot of games because they had some good players. It is bad. I mean, it's a stream whatever you can against the Panthers until they show otherwise. I mean, this is a team that's I laughed. I tried to cram a little bit for my fantasy draft, and the number of their fantasy, it's not real football, right? But the number of like optimistic blurbs about Dave Canales and the Panthers offense and like what they're going to do, and Bryce Young, and all this, and I'm just like, I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want anything to do with anything with the Panthers. Nothing. I bet their alternate under number for wins because I'm just like, I don't think they're good at all. So they absolutely, I think pick 33 is absolutely on the table.
Going back to my Survivor League, if I'm still in it, I'm going to just follow whoever's playing the Panthers every week because, God, they look bad.
I mean, I think you can make a good strategy just of trying to pick against bad teams, and that's a pretty good way to do Survivor anyway. And that's got to be one of them that you just follow around. I mean, I picked the Seahawks defense for week 1. I picked them up, and they did really well, but they also dropped like 4 picks against Bo Nix, which is unfortunate because that would have been a nice. I mean, I won my week anyway, but and then they play Drake May next, or not Drake May. They play the Patriots. Drake May's not playing yet. Yeah. They play the Patriots next week. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. So I get the first 2 weeks, out of the way with that pick. But it was between them and the Saints. And I was like, oh man, I should take the Saints because they just they rolled up there. Ken's got another one. I don't hate the Giants jerseys, the throwback jerseys. I don't think it looks good though with the pants and the helmet. So I don't like the uniform, but like the jersey on its own, like it's bold and different and kind of fun. Like I don't hate it as a throwback. Like see it once a year and gone. I kind of like that. But the like tan pants.
Yeah.
And I went back and looked at their uniform history. They have that jersey matched with like gray pants or white. Like, why did you pick this tan? It's hideous.
Yeah, I thought the jerseys. I mean, it kind of gives me hockey sweater vibes. Like if it was like
No.
made into like a hockey uniform, I think it
Yeah.
may kind of work. But on a football player, it does not work for me.
I don't hate it. I don't hate the jersey, but
Now,
the rest of it.
did you like the Bears, the old striped Eric
I
Kramer
don't
era? Did you like that
I
jersey?
think you could make that into I didn't like that how they did that in the 90s, but I feel like with modern jersey, like they're usually pretty good about making them look pretty slick.
Yeah.
I think you could maybe make that work again if you tried it. They'll never do it again because they get panned so bad. No, I mean they're kind of fun to like look at as like a oh yeah, I remember that. But no, I mean I didn't like them at the time. Thought they were weird.
I'm just making sure because you like the Giants. So
I don't know. I guess I have eclectic taste.
first head coach fired. It's week 1.
Yeah, it was pretty early. It's not going to be Canales, and people are already trying to get him out. And I mean, I know their owner's insane, but I mean,
That's a good point. Their owner is kind of nuts. I mean, if someone were going to do it, I think it might be him. So
yeah, I don't think that I don't think he'll let him go right away. I mean, again, he's insane, but I think he'll give him. I think the most likely scenario for me is that if they're really bad, and they get the number 1 pick, that they say, okay, Canales, pick your guy. Like clearly this didn't work with Bryce Young. That's the last regime. Now go scout the quarterbacks. We got the number 1 pick. Go pick your guy. Unless they're going to be like keep working with him. I mean, maybe Bryce turns the corner, but man, it's not looking good. Not looking good. That was a rough first day. I don't know. I mean, coming into the year, I think you'd say someone like Dennis Allen, the Saints, or something like that. They just beat the Panthers. I mean the Cowboys won pretty easily. I thought the Cowboys or the Eagles could have really, if they kind of fall apart, I could see them going another way, which seems kind of crazy with Sirianni because he was just riding a high. Never been impressed with Mike McCarthy as a Cowboys coach, but they score a lot of points, win a lot of games. They're really talented, but they just kind of fall flat in the playoffs. Why, if you were Jerry Jones, why wouldn't you just take a chance on Bill Belichick for 2 years?
Yeah,
with that roster and just see what happens.
What about Brian Dable, New York?
Yeah, it could be. You think they go down with the ship that quick?
I don't know. I mean, this will be his 4th year.
And they still haven't. I mean, they inherited Daniel Jones, right?
Yeah, which is kind of strange that they did this because you would think Dable wants something different there.
I think I think they probably wanted to move up. I mean, I watched that offseason Hard Knocks.
Yeah,
they wanted to move up for one of those guys, but no one was budging. Like they were trying to get up to 3 to get May.
Are they going to do another offseason Hard Knocks? You think, or you think Giants? It's like
what? Why do people think that it's so like? I mean, the number of people that we respect, they're like, oh, they'll never do another one because it was so embarrassing to Joe Shane. I don't watch the whole thing, and I'm like, why?
I mean, there was some weird things that kind of got out there, but it's kind of stuff that gets out there eventually anyway. And now it just kind of we just see it happen in real time. So it wasn't like it was like life altering. It is what it is.
They talked about, hey, we got a Daniel Jones. We like him a lot. We'd feel good about him, but look, he hasn't been healthy. We've got to we're trying to put together a football. Like, what did he say that you wouldn't feel comfortable? Like, they have some level of control here.
Yeah.
Right. So like, I honestly, I don't know that people in the Giants organization feel bad about that. Maybe the Saquon stuff, like the Saquon negotiation that maybe got away from them, but they drew a line and they didn't want to go above it. And we learned that the Bears apparently were after Saquon, and which makes sense because they end up signing Swift, right? So the dominoes start to fall. Like Saquon's the first guy that everybody wants, and the Eagles, he picks the Eagles, and then it just cascades down from there. And then Swift's maybe like, the third guy off the board or whatever it was. But, he drew a line. And on the one hand, people will like pan him for that because oh, he lost his star player and like he's he clearly wanted, he misplayed it and all this kind of stuff. And then that same group of people is going to be like, don't pay a running back.
Yeah.
Never give a running back a second contract. Like, which is it? Right? I don't think he did anything wrong or bad. Like, if you don't like him or you don't like the moves or whatever, that's one thing. But I thought it was fine. Oh, I was going to correct you in the show. You said the star of Hard Knocks was Caleb Williams. It was DJ Moore's daughter.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, she was the star. I mean, Caleb Williams was in it. He's a supporting character, but it was clearly DJ Moore's daughter.
Yeah. Did you like overall Hard Knocks? I know you didn't get a chance to do the final Hard Knocks recap because of your some technical difficulties, but did you like the overall Hard Knocks vibe the Bears gave us this year?
Yeah, literally, some kid ran his dad's Camaro into my utility pole and knocked my internet out for a few days. So he's okay. That's why I'm talking about it in the tone that I am. But he walked away, scratch on his hand, and that was it. Very amazing that is all that happened there. I think overall for me, I just really wanted to watch the Bears in it. I would love to have seen a little bit more behind the scenes. I thought even just the like shots in the offices were cool because I've never been inside of Hallis Hall to be able to see the offices or think like what they choose to put on the walls and things like that. I think that's cool. I love that. I didn't know the thing about the glass rods.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
And the different colors mean like, playoffs, winning record, championships. Like I was like, oh, I had no idea. Like that was a really cool little nugget that I didn't know about. So those are the kinds of things that I really wanted to learn. And if I could learn about some of the players and some like personal things, like, yeah, that's cool. I like that stuff. That's not really my thing. And I know that that's a lot of Hard Knocks. I was just hoping to get a little bit of a glimpse into some of the history and all of that. I didn't probably get as much as I wanted. I know I didn't get as much as I wanted, but overall, I think it was cool to see my favorite football team on the show.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I thought it was nice. I thought they have some sort of editorial control, but at the end of the day, you can only, tweak it as much as you can. I mean, it's going to be what it is. And I think that the Bears came off a likable bunch of players, a likable bunch of coaches, front office, Ryan Poles came across great, and these things are big PR moves for franchises. When the Lions were on a few years ago, I thought that franchise came away looking very good. And, I just, the players watch it. I mean, we saw that clip with Travis Kelce saying to Coach Flus, hey, man, I've been watching you guys. Players watch it. They want to know what's going on there. And, there's a way that players talk about different franchises, but now I'm seeing it. I can see how Ryan Poles treats Adrian Colbert when he's about to cut him. I see the human side of Coach Flus when he's walking around, the field, so this is going to help the franchise in the long run.
If they wanted the Browns from Baker Mayfield's rookie year, that was just like a disaster show. Like it was a disaster movie. Like Hugh, what was that guy's name? Was it Hugh Jackson? Is that his name?
Jackson, yeah.
I mean, disaster. And the guy looked like a buffoon. And you're like, oh, what's going on in Cleveland? Like, this is bad. And it was really bad, right? So that can happen, but the Bears weren't in that situation. They should be pretty proud of what they're building, and they should be proud of what they're able to show. If you want pure entertainment, you find position coaches and follow them around. That's it. I don't want to hear from a head coach. I don't want to hear from a coordinator. Those guys are too polished. They're like the CEOs. They're trying to work on their presence in front of the media. I want position coaches who have been in the league for like at least 20 years. They have either no interest in moving up, or they have already moved up and they're like kind of resigned to their position coach role. Just mic those guys up. That's it. That is the most entertaining thing. Even I don't know where Chad Morton and Jennifer King want to have their careers go. They were entertaining, but that is not nearly the level that you get when you like a former player who's now a position coach that comes in, and the way they talk, the way they see things, they are hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, that's the most entertaining Hard Knocks that you can get.
The Bears did sugarcoat this, where they kind of took some of the swears out, and but the one producer from Hard Knocks said that this is the of all the teams she's done, and obviously she's been with them from a long time. The Bears swear by far the least of any team. So I'm sure that's scaled back a bit, but some of these position coaches, especially the former players, I'm sure it wouldn't have worked with this season, especially with them wanting to kind of be PG-13. I don't think it would have worked. They would have been, beeping and beeping every other word because, we've saw the other Hard Knocks. That's kind of how some of these guys are. It's mother F this, mother F that. It's just the whole thing. But yeah, I think at some point, man, let's mic them all up, man. It'll be fun. Yeah.
That's what I want. Like extra bonus scenes.
Yeah.
Right. But bonus scenes. Just give me that. Give me position coaches and just let it rip. So, all right, well, we'll leave it there. Thanks everybody for joining the live stream. Really appreciate it. Good to see your faces back and 1-0 Chicago Bears. So, I mean, a win is a win is a win.
Yeah. No ugly wins, as Ken says.
As Ken says, no ugly wins, only ugly losses.